Good morning and welcome to this week's episode of Iconic Freedom, The Formula. Here we set a standard for accountability and responsibility, the ownership of your choices and your outcomes and everything that follows. Let each care for self and all will be cared for. So when I talk about the formula, we talk about that periodic chart that you see on the various websites that this is posted on, where you create those elements that come together and bring harmony to your life. And if one of those elements in your life is not working, then you extract it and you reevaluate it and, again, bring that harmony to your life. Last week, we started to question something, right? Not what's happening out there, but what's happening in here. So, we ask, right? Wait, how much of what I think, feel, and say is actually mine? Do I even know? What belongs to me? I say this quite often recently for some reason to various people is what belongs to me and what belongs to others. And once that question lands, something starts to shift. You stop reacting so quickly and you start watching a little more closely. And then I think something comes in to focus. You don't just see patterns anymore. You start seeing what I would call our scripts. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the word script. I was been an actor for a very long time. You get a script and you memorize the lines and then you say the lines, right? That's what people do a lot of times. There's, not this random behavior and not like these one-off reactions, but sequences, if you will. They are repeatable, they're predictable, they're familiar. Same tone, same escalation, same outcome, different people. Big deal. And a script is pretty simple. It's basically a predictable emotional sequence that someone runs as if they hit the play button, right? And most especially, you'll find that happens for people when they're not present to the moment, right? So we repeat these phrases often so that, they become integrated, part of your lexicon, if you will, that you're in emotion, you're out of reality. And it becomes the default and the thing that shows up for people when they're under pressure. The same cliche phrases, cliche reactions, in some situations, the same conclusion. But here's the thing, here's the part that I think most people kind of miss, and that the script isn't who someone is, it's what they run when they're not paying attention. I've even known times in my life where I'm having a conversation with somebody, I walk away and go, what did I just say? Fortunately, it doesn't happen all that often now as it did, but I often found myself, wondering that for myself. But you've seen them, right? You've seen people where there's like escalation, then they get into victim, and then they go into blame, or they'll be very confused and they're into being overwhelmed, and then they start to shut down. Deflection, people do it all the time. They go into justification and then into some sort of moral high ground to try to shut you down or to shut their opposition down. But if you watch closely enough, you'll notice that something else is happening. You can almost predict whatever is going to come next. Now, this is not about making people wrong. That's not what this is. This is not to give you a platform for self-righteousness. But scripts exist for a reason, and they're learned, practiced, and they're reinforced. They help people, sure. They help people avoid discomfort. They help people protect their identity and their image building. They help people maintain control, or at least their delusion of control. And for some people, it helps preserve their ego. But I think most importantly, they appear to work. right? They appear to work because people keep doing it. Now, is it because they actually work or because the person thinks in their polluted mind that this is the way to go because they don't want to be present to the moment? See, people don't run scripts because they're bad. They run scripts because they appear to be effective. The person that is playing the victim, it appears to work for them, but they don't realize that every time they play victim, they scratch a little more integrity off of their card, off of their ledger. And, at some point, you're going to have no integrity. You're going to have no character. And this, I think, is where it can shift for you. You think you're in a conversation, but you're not. You're inside of a sequence, almost like the Matrix. But I think once you see the sequence, you can feel it unfolding in real time. You can hear the tone change in people. You can sense the direction that it's heading. You can even feel the pull for you, basically, to step into your role. Because, there's always a role that's waiting for you, right? And I think this is the part that most people don't want to look at, and that is that scripts don't run alone. We talk about on the podcast owning your contribution to any transaction. And these scripts require participation. And if you're honest with yourself, you've played your part. Not because you're weak and it's not because you're wrong, but because it's familiar. Because you have scripts too. And sometimes someone else's script, it fits perfectly with yours. Like two puzzle pieces snapping together. But before you know it, you're not responding, you're performing. And is it truly you? Here is what I think is where people kind of go off their path. They think that the goal is to stop the other person, fix the behavior, correct the pattern, interrupt the script. No, that's not your role. No one puts you in charge. You don't control the script. I guess you could say you control whether you perform it. I don't even want to say control. I want to say you choose whether or not you want to perform in it. You can choose not to take the bait. You can choose not to follow the escalation. You can choose not to defend against some distortion. And, you don't have to complete that loop. And when you don't, the script basically can't finish. And that space in that moment, it can feel probably a little uncomfortable because the pattern didn't resolve the way it usually does. There's no familiar happy ending, and there's no emotional payoff, and there's no sense of completion. People, oh, well, we want to circle back to, close the loop of blah, blah, blah. No. Sometimes it's okay that there's just space. And in that space, you're no longer reacting, you're choosing. You're consciously making choice. That is where the formula lives. Not in some hypothesis, in that moment. Recognizing the script, that's awareness. Choosing not to engage, that's responsibility, your ability to respond. Owning whatever comes next, that's your accountability. And honestly, here's the reality. Seeing the script doesn't make you powerful, but choosing differently does empower you. It gives you the freedom in your life to make the decisions that are correct for you. Okay, so here's some notes that I took about something to sit with this week. Where do you run your scripts? And where do you invite others into them? Where do you call it communication? But it's really just repetition. I mean, you're not stuck in life. You're stuck in patterns, and patterns that you haven't questioned. Life doesn't shift until self-awareness begins. Life doesn't shift until self-awareness begins. And once it does, you get to decide. It doesn't mean that if you don't have self-awareness, that there is no consequence to your actions, words and deeds, right? No. The law of nature says you make a choice and this is how it works. This is how it goes. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think or feel about that reality. It is the reality as we know it in this moment in time. You can play a game with yourself and you can say, I wasn't aware, blah blah blah. I mean, you can delude yourself, you can scam yourself, but the reality is always going to be this. Life doesn't shift until self-awareness begins. You are not a victim of circumstances. You're not a victim at all. The victim of circumstances in your head that you scam yourself with is doing what? Say it with me. Avoiding responsibility, avoiding accountability. Truly, I mean, this is the third year. No, this is the fourth year. I'm going into the fourth year, season 4 of this podcast. And this is what is true. This is what reality has brought forth over and over again. And it truly is the simplicity of it. You can get out there and listen to all these gurus and all the rest of that and hear what they have to say. Okay, great. Hey, do that. Taste it, see if you like it, spit it out if it doesn't work for you. But I will tell you this, it is the simplicity of this. You have to have self-awareness of who you are, the choices you make, and the self-interest of those choices. If you have no self-awareness of the choices that you're making and the reason that you made the choice to feel comfort or to feel good or to do this or to do that, whatever it is, if you have no self-awareness of that, you're going to just feel like you keep bumping into your world, bumping into people, hitting speed bumps, walking into walls, crashing into walls, feeling like you're a victim of circumstance. Life is not happening to you, it's happening because of you and the choices that you make. If you don't like where you are in this life at this moment, make a different choice. It's really that simple. Can people stop wars by simply becoming responsible? Yes, they can. And if they are so damaged in their brain that they can't get to that point, then you know what? Then the opposition is going to help them and not in the ways that they want. Because that is the law of nature. Choices will be made, reactions and actions will follow from all of that, and then more choices will be made. The ability to respond to the choice you make, the accountability of the outcomes and everything that follows. You have to own it. Own it consciously. Own it with self-awareness. Not getting caught up in the schmutz, but being self-aware. I said it. I own it. And it's uncomfortable at times. In the beginning, I felt uncomfortable about some of the choices I've made in my life. That's okay. I'm not now. I don't care. It's all trial and error. I would never do to another to harm them. It would just never occur to me. And that's where you want to be, right? So you're not stuck in this life. You're not stuck, you know, in not being able to make the change. I say often, been saying it for a long time, become self-aware, start owning your choices, and your life will change on a dime. Guaranteed. I didn't even make it up. I just observed it. Okay, hit that like button if you would. Share it with your family and friends. You never know how it might support them in their endeavor. All the fun links are below, and if you're inclined, feel free to subscribe on Buzzsprout. I am on X and Truth Social, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. The link to my newest book, The Christmas Cookie, Stories from the Counter, is listed below. I'd be grateful and honored if you chose to pick up a copy. It's a collection of heartwarming stories that I quietly say unfold the very principles that we talk about here each week. And until next time, stay sharp, stay sovereign, and as always, remember, let each care for self, and all will be cared for. Make it a great one.